Welcome to the Sharon Decker podcast, where we share stories of who we love, what we love, and places we love in Western North Carolina. So settle in, listen up, and enjoy the show. I am so glad that Jake Orr is with us today. Jake and I got to know each other actually just after Hurricane Helene. I was introduced to him by our son, and I was hearing about the work he was doing with first responders. Jake is a licensed mental health counselor, ER clinician, a doctoral researcher, and founder of Quiet Mountain Counseling and Consulting. I love the name. That tells us a lot about you. He specializes in working with first responders, veterans, and high-performing professionals that are navigating any type of trauma, moral, energy, and burnout. I also know you're a PhD candidate now, where your research focuses on the lived experience of morally injured police officers. Jake, welcome. I have
Thank
to
you,
first
Sharon.
understand, what is moral injury? What does that mean?
Well, and it is a mouthful. It's this I have to really slow down and kind of, when I think about moral injury, it starts for me within a personal experience of feeling as if I'm powerless, or I've had to maybe surpass or violate a moral boundary or value that I have about myself, or maybe perhaps a way about I believe about the world. And I've had to either witness that. We call it a transgression. It's just a fancy word for violation. I've
Yeah.
had to witness the violation of a moral standard that I have for myself or others, or maybe perhaps I've been forced into a situation where I've had to violate those myself
Mm.
in order to accommodate maybe the need of an outcome, or maybe perhaps a leadership issue. But yeah, it leaves you feeling just this very vague, strange feeling of guilt, remorse, betrayal even.
Yeah.
It's very complex.
And it can come for many reasons and in many forms. It is that
Mhm.
breach that is the issue, right? And
Correct.
so, Jake, those of us in Western North Carolina are still dealing with the reality of recovery from Helene. I've been surprised myself that after the first year, point, and we reached the end of September again this year, and kind of the acknowledgement of the 1 year point, I felt like I would feel some relief, and I find myself surprised by the grief I'm feeling now that I didn't feel in the early stages when everything was really urgent and there were immediate things we could do. And now so much of what I'm dealing with is long-term recovery, and folks are recognizing that there are things that are going to take some time to get fixed, replaced, for things to get back to whatever normal is, right?
Mhm.
So I'm thinking about it here at the holidays, especially because then you get the holiday excitement and overwork and overcommitment and all
Yeah,
those things that make it so stressful. I know you're seeing a lot of this in the trauma work you're doing right now. How in the world do we cope with all of this?
it's a really the short answer is I don't know, Sharon.
Oh, wait a minute,
But
Jake. We had you on here to give us some answers.
I wish I had a great concise answer to
Yeah.
give you, but what's beautiful about the privilege I have in working with these people during, specifically during this time of year and in the wake of this storm, is that I am always learning from my clients about how they are themselves resilient. And what I can tell you just from personal experience and in my clinical experience is that it is different for everybody. And the one core tenet I've found throughout this experience and working with these folks is that just because it's been a year does not indicate to you, or shouldn't indicate to anybody in your environment that we're going to be just past this for some reason. Um, we call these times of year where we're probably about a year out from these events. They're called trigger dates for a reason. And our bodies remember that time of year last year, and our bodies kind of step out and say, hey, something feels very incorrect about my state right now.
Right,
And what I'll tell you is people typically lack the ability to articulate what that experience is like for them.
right.
And so, what I just urge people to do is just to be patient with themselves and recognize that your central nervous system is in a repose and that this time of year comes with a tremendous amount of expectations. And therefore, we need to be even more patient with ourselves than we normally would in any other context.
And that's a hard thing to do, to be patient
Yeah.
with ourselves, isn't it? Thank you for helping me acknowledge that that one-year point was kind of self-made.
Hmm.
Maybe was a marker I needed to acknowledge, but not to ignore what the feelings are afterwards, or, not to ignore that it doesn't just go away, right?
Yeah.
I've been aware this Christmas too, Jake, that last Christmas I was still, and I still am, involved in recovery, restoration, all of those things, but there were a lot of things we did not do last Christmas because
Yeah.
traditions, things were different, our timing was different, we were in different circumstances, and this year I find myself wanting to go back to those traditions and the timing of those traditions, and I guess that's a way of finding some sense of, uh, memory that brings back good memories in replacement for some of the ones that are so difficult. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, I really empathize with what you're saying. And, it makes me think about those conversations that come up at the dinner table or perhaps, just in the midst of family that you maybe haven't seen in a while or friends you haven't seen in a while. And people are wondering, either for their own curiosity or because they truly do want to know what it's like to be you. How are you doing at this time of year? How has it been to, be a year out from this? I'll tell you this. I mean, there's something that can really feel very vulnerable and very raw about saying, "Hey, this is what I'm going through and this is what I've been through." And then maybe to not get the response that you're looking for out of that loved one or that friend, that can leave some folks feeling a little bit there's like a vulnerability hangover. I've overshared my experience and I didn't get
Right,
what I needed in return.
right.
And that's a very difficult thing, right?
No, it is. Jake, it's interesting you mentioned that because I'm finding a lot of people who say to me, Sharon, thanks for asking, how I'm
Mhm.
doing. But I don't want to tell the story anymore. I want to think forward. What am I working toward? What am I trying to make happen for my future that's an outcome
Yeah.
from all of this trauma? And so I really appreciated and have appreciated folks speaking forward to me. And that's not a bad thing. I had someone recently say, "I feel guilty that I don't wanna talk about the past anymore. I really just
Mm.
wanna focus on the future." But it's important, don't you is it important to acknowledge that transition in ourselves?
I 100% could not agree more with you, Sharon. There is there is a reframe that, for you, it sounds like it's happening internally and you're noticing it in your environment where, we're sick of talking about it. And it's probably because it does stir up some feelings and some pain and perhaps even some anger about, man, yeah, I wish I could do more or whatever those emotions are. They're all normal. But now we're stepping into this phase of life post, storm where let's think about what we want more of in our lives. And we're in a space, I think, to be able to have those conversations and to have those kinds of thoughts. And what that also does, I think, is it allows us to make space for people that maybe don't have it as good as we do. Or maybe are lesser off than we are right now, so that we can give them the help that they need to move through
So
the
important.
process.
So
Hmm.
important. So important. So, Jake, I wanna go back to this conversation we started about moral injury.
Sure.
And I know that that's something you work with first responders who may be faced with these critical decisions in the
Hmm.
process of dealing with trauma or accidents or emergency situations. But I'm not a first responder. Many of our listeners are not first responders, although we have many that are listening to us. So why should that matter to us? Do we face the same type of potential experience?
I would say, according to what the current research is saying about that, it's not as prevalent in the general population
Yeah.
of, people that are not in first responder roles. It's much higher and specifically in policing, particularly because there's a public scrutiny. There's an aspect of public scrutiny that's a part of the split decision making of right or wrong, life or death. intervention causing, significant, consequences, whether they're good or bad. Um, what I'll share with you though is if and any listener that's hearing this is if you've ever been in a situation where you left maybe think about an interaction you had where you just left feeling like you did something wrong, or perhaps you witnessed something that was being done wrong to another person and it just didn't sit well with you.
Yeah.
There is a good chance that you have encountered what's called moral injury, or perhaps moral suffering, where it's, I feel as if what I find most dear in my values and morals has been completely violated or questioned, even. And then we're left feeling this sense of like, I feel very uneasy about what I've just
Kind of an
seen or what I've
empty
done.
yeah, and it's an empty feeling of not knowing what to do with that, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I found within policing specifically is that there's this massive gap in understanding. It's kind of evolving through research, but there's this massive gap in understanding what exactly it's like to be a police officer who's under this, metaphorical gun, if you will, of
right.
this moral suffering. And it what's wild to me and what's fascinating is it often looks like PTSD. However, there's no index trauma that we can go back to and say, well, this technically doesn't fit this box. So what is this?
It's important to talk about this too, because many of us have family members, loved ones that are first responders, emergency workers of some type, and we are in a place to see and feel the pain that they are experiencing. It's important for us to encourage them getting help as well. Folks turn. If I've got a brother or a significant other that's a first responder and I sense that they're dealing with some of these challenges, this exacerbated in the intensity of some recent experiences, obviously, that we're all reading about and hearing about, is
Mhm.
exacerbated by the speed and challenge of the holidays. Where do we turn? Where do we help them turn?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. And I think that the first tool that folks should adopt, not only in first responders but in their loved ones, is this understanding that um, the first step to change is having insight, is having awareness that something is off, and then the second step is having the courage to speak up and say something about it.
Yeah,
Where often first responders specifically get stuck in this loop of suffering is that they feel as if they're alone in that experience,
right.
and that a sign of weakness is seen as a civilian deficiency in being able to process emotions.
Yeah,
They're no longer stoic, they're no longer competent. So the key here is to bring them together, ideally folks that trust each other in those roles, and
right.
disclose and to talk about, hey, this is what's going on with me, and being willing to have those conversations.
Yeah. So calling a therapist, talking with a pastor, asking for
Absolutely.
referrals, will also provide your information for your counseling services. And I know that you have worked in the past and perhaps now with county and city agencies that provide this kind
Mhm.
of support to emergency workers. And we're so grateful for it because those who experience the recovery in Helene and since, and those who are experiencing challenges and even the national incidents, whether that's the Boston University shooting
Yeah.
or Reiners or whoever it is, and what we're hearing about that can trigger things
Yeah.
that happened long ago, and folks need help.
Right.
Can't underscore enough how important it is in all of these circumstances to reach out for help for
Mhm.
sure. One of the things I know, Jake, is that around the holidays, folks can talk about just being totally burned out. I'm exhausted, I'm burned out. What does that really mean, and what do you see when folks come to you and say, "I'm just burned out, can't do anymore,
Yeah.
lids off."
Yeah. It's so common, and I appreciate you bringing this up because this time of year, it's almost as if it feels like for most people, it's a race to the finish. We've got this threshold of January 1
Right?
where it's all just new. Well, guess what? This January 1 and December 31st are the same thing. It's
Yeah,
just an
just a
arbitrary,
day
but
apart, right?
it's a day apart. And
Yeah,
humans have established this way of measuring time with calendars, but life is moving forward, y'all. And you can start by addressing these things now. And so when I hear about burnout or I see it, it's usually the overgiving of oneself in order to please those in someone's environment. It's this idea that I need the more that I give, the more that I'll, X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is now's the time to within the winter season to slow down and to rest and you know, to come back to yourself and understand that at the end of the day, you've got to take care of yourself. And if you don't, then you're going to start feeling it, and people around you will start feeling it.
Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned that kind of arbitrary January 1. I gotta set new goals. I gotta reach the end. I gotta get these things done before the
Yeah,
year, et cetera. That really is self-imposed for the most part. I
it
mean,
is.
it's
Yeah.
just another calendar day, that's for sure. Maybe I want to start setting my resolutions in July. That might
Yeah.
that might take the edge off maybe.
I
Jake,
like that.
yeah. But we do set kind of artificial expectations based on what we feel like we have to do for others. Someone introduced to me the idea about 10 years ago that has been really helpful to me, Jake, and that
Mm.
is winter time is a time for withdrawing. It is, my work schedule doesn't change, but my personal schedule perhaps should, because winter is a time for renewing. I mean, bears go to hibernate, right? And
Right.
the birds fly south. And there is in the natural world a shift in what happens for
Mhm.
animals. Why don't we consciously make a bit of that shift for us as humans? Rather than
Right.
keeping the same pace, let's slow it down. I hear people say, "Oh, I hate it when the days are shorter." What that introduction has done for me is to make me love the shorter days,
Mm.
because it has meant a very intentional pattern of slowing down in the evenings, going to bed a little earlier, getting more sleep, doing my own bit of
Mm.
hibernation. And interestingly, my fear was, well, I'll lose productivity. I won't get as much done. That's not been the case at all.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
I'm conscious the day is shorter. I've got to be more effective. And quite honestly, maybe I don't do as many things, but what I do well. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's well, what you're talking about is, really optimizing the amount of time that you have available to you and making
Right.
it make feeling as if you're more efficient during this time where at that end of that day, you're able to surrender to rest and to kind of have that repose that we talked about earlier. Um, and what's counter to this idea is that this time of year often imposes these expectations that you need to do more and you need to be more for more people. What I tell people a lot, Sharon, and I can't take credit for this. This is a Tim Ferriss ism.
Uh,
Is pick a day in your schedule. If you're really bad at saying no to people, which I bet most of us are, is pick a day and assign that day to saying no to everything that comes across your radar
yeah.
and practice that because it is a muscle that atrophies over time if you don't use it.
No. My way to do that is honoring Sabbath.
Mm,
And, that's a day that and I typically in my lifetime had made Sunday as busy as any day, but Sabbath doesn't have to be Sunday. It could be any day of the week that you pick and know that it's yes to my spiritual life, it's yes to my physical and emotional and mental life, and this is a day that's focused more on rest and what I don't do than what I do. And so
right.
it doesn't mean you gotta, disappear and you're not
Yeah.
interfacing with people, but it's caused me to restructure one day a week that
Hmm.
really is the week I so look forward to, or day
Yeah.
that I so look forward to in my week. So thank you for that suggestion. In my own life, it's been a very effective thing to do. It really
Absolutely. I
otherwise,
love that.
we just keep jamming it up, right?
Well, and you're bringing up a really good point in that I think most of us assume the idea of rest is stillness,
Yes.
and it's not necessarily always that way. It's not laying in bed all day. It
Right.
could be,
Yeah.
but for you, you've realigned your priorities to things that feed your soul.
I do always get a nap. I go to
Well, you got to do that.
that's right. I participate in worship. I eat well, I nap, and typically at the end of the day, we have dinner with some members of our family somewhere.
Yeah.
It's just a day that we know we can connect. I read a book a number of years ago by Joe Lieberman about Sabbath, and his Jewish faith informed for him the habit of Sabbath. And he said he never took business calls. He did not attend Senate meetings that happened on Sunday. He just made a commitment that Sabbath would be a practice of his life. And he
Yeah.
said there was never anything that happened that couldn't wait till Monday. And
Yeah.
but that discipline of a day of care and rest, and in his case, a discipline around his spiritual life was, life forming. It really was.
Yeah.
Jake, as you think about the season, as you think about our Western North Carolina friends specifically, what two or three nuggets of truth and advice would you leave us with today?
Mm. It's it would be that it's okay to still be feeling a little strangely, and perhaps even for a little while longer or however long it takes to be feeling that way is completely normal. There's no right or wrong way to be, feeling how you're feeling right now. And so I would just urge people to be patient with themselves, but also start setting metrics for yourself. Start setting milestones and in ways that you'd like to see your 2026 unfold, and be intentional around that. And make them measurable. We call them SMART goals. Any other counselor listening to this will be rolling their eyes right now, but
Yeah.
you gotta make them measurable, you gotta make them attainable.
Yeah.
But yeah, we need to look into this next year and start, um, you know, creating those milestones that we'd like to see be different for ourselves. And then also the last thing I'll say is Christmas is next week, y'all, and take time for yourself. If you're starting to feel that temperature rise within your body, take some time to recalibrate yourself and step outside perhaps, and then reintroduce yourself when it's the right time for you. There's no wrong in doing that. So be patient. Be patient with yourself and your families, and uh and rest when you can.
Breathe deeply, right?
Breathe deeply.
Breathe deeply. Give some space for yourself to enjoy the time and to know that it's
Absolutely.
precious. Jake, you're just the best. I'm so grateful for the work you do every single day. You give your heart and life to so many to help their lives be better and better quality, and I'm so grateful for that. So thanks for joining us again. We'll have you back. There's so many things I still want to talk about.
Please do. Please have me back, and I'll be doing some homework for some content moving forward.
Good. Good. Merry Christmas to you. Have a great
Merry Christmas to
holiday.
y'all. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much for joining us this week for the Sharon Decker podcast, where, once again, we've shared what we love, where we love, and the people we love in Western North Carolina. Join us next week, too. And in the meantime, you'll find us at SharonDecker.com or on Instagram at TheSharonDecker.